The emergency lights bathed the research outpost's hallways in a pulsing red glow. Kayla worked quickly, her six-fingered hands carefully storing the last biological samples in their protective cases. The rumble of the station's warning system had been going for nearly 20 minutes, but she needed these samples. 3 months of work would be lost if she left them behind. Just 5 more minutes, she whispered to herself, sliding the final sample into its slot with a satisfying click. Epsilon 9 was not a large research station by Vesperian standards. Built into a small asteroid at the edge of the Carina Nebula, it housed only 32 scientists and support staff. They studied the unusual radiation patterns and biological adaptations in this sector. Kayla was the youngest researcher, having earned her place through her work on cellular regeneration in extreme environments. The station shook again, harder this time. Kayla secured her sample case and hurried toward the central hub. Her footsteps echoed in the empty corridor as she ran. She had stayed too long in the deep labs, where the warning announcements were muffled. Only when the emergency lights activated had she realized something was wrong. The first sign of real trouble was the silence in the main corridor. Usually buzzing with activity, it now stood empty. Kayla's heart beat faster as she sprinted toward the docking bay. "Hello? Is anyone there?" She called out, her voice bouncing off the metal walls. She burst through the doors of the central command room. Empty chairs faced blank screens. Coffee cups sat half full on desks. Someone had left in such a hurry that a datapad lay cracked on the floor. Kayla felt the first wave of real fear wash over her. "This isn't right," she muttered, rushing to the nearest console. Her fingers flew over the controls as she pulled up the station's alert system. The message made her blood run cold. Emergency evacuation ordered, cosmic storm approaching, severity level, critical, estimated impact, 47 minutes. The timestamp showed the alert had gone out almost 40 minutes ago. Kayla checked the ship logs with trembling hands. The last transport had undocked 12 minutes earlier. They had left without her. She tried to stay calm as she opened the communication channel. "This is junior researcher Kayla Venn on Outpost Epsilon 9. Transport Helix, do you copy? I'm still on the station. Please respond." Only static answered her. She tried again, broadening the signal. "Any Vesperian vessel, this is Epsilon 9. I require immediate evacuation. Please respond." Nothing. Kayla moved to the observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the swirling clouds of the nebula growing darker in one direction. The cosmic storm was visible now, a writhing mass of energy that distorted space itself. And in the opposite direction, a tiny speck of light, the transport ship, was already too far away to see clearly. In their rush to escape, no one had checked if all personnel were accounted for. Or perhaps they had checked and somehow missed her. The deep labs where she had been working were shielded to protect sensitive experiments, which might have interfered with life sign scans. Kayla took a deep breath and forced herself to think logically. First, she needed to know if she would survive the coming storm. Back at the main console, she ran a simulation. The station's shields were designed to withstand normal cosmic radiation, but this storm was much stronger. The computer predicted damage to external sensors and communication arrays, but the main structure should hold. Life support would remain functional. She would live, at least for now. Working quickly, Kayla initiated emergency protocols. The station's outer shields strengthened, drawing extra power from non-essential systems. She secured loose equipment and moved to the central hub, the most protected part of the station. When the storm hit, it was like nothing she had experienced before. The station groaned under the assault. Lights flickered. Equipment crashed to the floor despite her efforts to secure everything. Kayla curled up against the wall, clutching her sample case to her chest, as the world seemed to come apart around her. It lasted nearly 3 hours. When silence finally returned, Kayla uncurled herself slowly. Her limbs felt stiff, and a small cut on her forehead had dried. She moved carefully through the dim station, now running on emergency power. The damage assessment wasn't good. External communication arrays were completely destroyed. The main power core was stable, but operating at reduced capacity. Most importantly, all the escape pods had been launched during the evacuation, standard procedure to prevent them from becoming dangerous projectiles during the storm. She was truly stranded. "They'll come back for me," Kayla said aloud, needing to hear a voice, even if it was her own. "Once they realize I'm missing, they'll send a rescue ship." But as days turned into weeks, no rescue came. Kayla established a routine to keep herself sane. Morning diagnostics on station systems. Midday work on her research, she still had her samples after all. Afternoon maintenance on critical systems. Evening meal followed by recording a daily log. Day 27 on Epsilon 9. She spoke into her personal recorder. "Still no contact from any Vesperian vessels. I've managed to repair the short-range scanner, but it shows nothing within detection range. Life support remains stable. Food supplies should last another 4 months if I continue rationing. Water recycling is functioning at 94% efficiency." She paused, looking out at the stars. "I wonder if they're looking for me. Did they even notice I'm gone? Senior researcher Villan always said I was too quiet. Perhaps they think I died in the storm." Kayla had never felt so alone. Vesperians were not a highly social species compared to some others, but they did live and work in structured groups. Being completely isolated was taking a toll. By the end of the second month, she had explored every corner of the station. She knew each creaking sound, each flickering light. She had read every data file in the system 3 times. She had even named the small service robots that still functioned around the station. The hardest part was not knowing. Had her people simply written off the station as lost? Was there a rescue mission planning to reach her that was delayed for some reason? Or had something worse happened? Had the storm somehow affected her home world too? She had no way to know. The long-range communication array was beyond repair with the tools and material she had available. On particularly bad nights, when the emptiness of space seemed to press in on the station walls, Kayla would sit in the observation deck and look out at the stars. The nebula's colors shifted and swirled, beautiful and deadly. If this was to be her final home, at least the view was magnificent. Day 89, she recorded, her voice noticeably thinner than in earlier logs. "I've started to hear things. Nothing specific, just sounds that shouldn't be there. The station creaking, in ways it hasn't before. I tell myself it's just the structure settling after the storm damage, but sometimes it sounds almost like footsteps." She laughed weakly. "I know it's just my mind playing tricks. Isolation does that according to the medical databases. At least my research is progressing. The radiation from the storm created some fascinating mutations in my samples. If I ever get off this station, this research could be valuable. If, not when." She was starting to lose hope. That night, as Kayla drifted into an uneasy sleep in her small quarters, a new sound echoed through the station. Not the familiar creaks and groans of metal, but a steady rhythmic beeping from the central console. The proximity alert was activating. Something was approaching the station. Kayla rushed to the control room, her heart pounding. After 3 months of silence, the proximity alert was active. Something was approaching Epsilon 9. She slid into the main control chair and brought up the external cameras. The screen showed only stars at first, then a small dot growing larger. It was a ship, but unlike any Vesperian vessel she had ever seen. Its design was blocky and practical, with large engines and what appeared to be external cargo containers attached to its hull. "Unknown vessel approaching Epsilon 9, she said into the communication system, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is junior researcher Kayla Venn. Please identify yourself." No response came. Either they couldn't hear her, or they were ignoring her calls. Kayla checked the scanner again. The ship was still approaching, but slowly, cautiously, she tried again. "Unknown vessel, this station has been damaged. Our main communication array is offline. If you can hear me, please respond on emergency channel 6. Still nothing. Kayla felt fear mixing with her initial excitement. What if they weren't here to rescue her? What if they were scavengers, looking to strip the abandoned station for parts? The vessel came closer, moving into a holding pattern about half a kilometer from the station. Now she could see it clearly. It was smaller than a Vesperian science vessel, perhaps designed for a crew of 1 or 2. Patches of different colored metal suggested repairs had been made with whatever materials were available. The name Horizon Seeker was painted on its side in symbols she couldn't read. Suddenly, a new voice came through the speakers. The sounds were unlike anything Kayla had heard before, rough, with strange inflections and rhythms. "This is Independent. Salvage vessel Horizon Seeker responding to distress signal. Is anyone alive in there?" The translation matrix struggled to convert the unfamiliar language, creating delays between phrases. Kayla's hands trembled as she responded. "Yes, this is Junior Researcher Kayla Venn on Research Outpost Epsilon 9. I am alive and alone on this station." There was a pause, then the voice returned. "Well, wasn't expecting anyone alive out here. Your station looked pretty dead from a distance. I'm Alan Warren, salvage pilot. Are you hurt? How many others are with you?" "I am not injured," Kayla replied. "I'm the only one here. My people evacuated during a cosmic storm warning, but I was left behind. That was 90 days ago." Another pause. 3 months alone? That's rough. Look, I picked up a weak distress beacon while charting this sector. Thought I'd find a ghost ship, not a survivor." Kayla moved to the observation window. For the first time, she could see lights activate around what must be the ship's airlock. Someone was preparing to come aboard. Are you coming to the station?" she asked. "If that's okay with you," Alan replied. "My scans show your docking bay is intact. I'd like to check if you need medical attention, bring some supplies. Been a while since I've met anyone new out here in the deep black." Kayla hesitated. This wasn't a Vesperian rescue ship. This was someone completely unknown. But what choice did she have? "Yes, you may dock in Bay 3. I will meet you there." As she made her way to the docking bay, Kayla tried to prepare herself. This would be her first encounter with a non-Vesperian intelligence. She had studied other spacefaring species during her training, but her people had direct contact with only 4 alien civilizations, all within their local star cluster. This entity could be from anywhere. The docking sequence was surprisingly smooth. The strange ship connected to the station with a solid clunk. Kayla waited behind the safety barrier as the airlock cycled. Her scanner showed the atmosphere from the other ship was compatible with Vesperian biology, which was somewhat reassuring. The inner door slid open. A creature stepped through that Kayla had never seen before. It stood on 2 legs instead of 4, with only 2 arms instead of 4 upper limbs. Its skin appeared soft and mostly hairless except for the top of its head and parts of its face. It wore a fitted suit made of some durable material, with pockets and tools attached at various points. "Hello there," the being said, its mouth moving in ways very different from Vesperian speech patterns. "I'm Alan Warren. Hope my universal translator is working okay for you." Kayla took an involuntary step back. The alien, Alan, noticed and stopped moving. "Sorry if I startled you," he said, raising his hand slightly. "I come in peace, as the old saying goes." What are you?" Kayla asked, unable to hide her shock. Alan's face changed, the edges of his mouth turning upward. "I'm human. From Earth originally, though I haven't been back in years. I'm guessing you've never met one of us before?" Kayla shook her head. "Humans are unknown to Vesperians. My people have not explored far beyond our local star cluster." "Well, we humans get around," Alan said. "We're newcomers to deep space travel, compared to some species, but we're curious folks. I map unexplored regions looking for salvage, resources, and new trade routes." He gestured to a small container he had brought with him. "I brought some emergency supplies. Food, medical kit, repair tools. Standard stuff I carry for salvage operations. Not sure what your species eats, though." Kayla's initial fear was slowly being replaced by scientific curiosity. This human appeared to be non-threatening, and his posture suggested he was being deliberately non-aggressive. "Thank you," she said, stepping forward. "Vesperian biology requires different nutrients than what you might consume, but I have sufficient food supplies for now. What I lack is a way to contact my people or repair the main communication array. Alan looked around the docking bay, his eyes scanning the facility with what seemed like professional interest. I might be able to help with communications. My ship has a decent long-range system. Where are your people located? I could send a message. Our home system is 60 light-years from here, in what you might call the direction of the Carina Arm, Kayla explained. But there should be research vessels and outposts much closer. The nearest Vesperian outpost would be Gamma 12, about 18 light days from here. Alan scratched his head. That's quite a ways out from my usual routes. No wonder I've never encountered your kind before. He paused. Would you mind if I took a look at your station systems? Maybe I can help get something working again. For the first time in 3 months, Kayla felt a spark of real hope. Even if this human couldn't take her home, any help was better than slowly watching her supplies dwindle to nothing. Yes, please follow me to the control center. I can show you the damage assessments. As they walked through the station's corridors, Alan looked at everything with obvious curiosity. You know, he said conversationally, I've been alone on my ship for 4 months this trip. It's hard, the isolation. I can't imagine what 3 months alone on a damaged station has been like for you. Kayla glanced at him, surprised by the observation. It has been difficult, she admitted. Vesperians are not as social as some species, but complete isolation is not natural for us. In the control room, Alan let out a low whistle as he saw the extent of the damage displayed on the main screen. That was some storm that hit you. You're lucky the life support systems held. Not luck, Kayla corrected. I redirected power to the shields and core systems before the storm hit. Alan's face made that upward movement again, a smile she recalled from her xenobiology studies. It was an expression of approval or happiness in some species. Quick thinking, he said. That probably saved your life. As Alan examined the station's systems, occasionally asking technical questions that Kayla answered to the best of her ability, she found herself studying this strange alien. Humans were very different physically from Vesperians, yet there was something about the way Alan moved and spoke that suggested commonalities in thought processes. Well, Alan finally said, leaning back from the console, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is that I think I can rig up a temporary communication relay using parts from my ship. The bad news is that it won't have nearly the range. You need to reach your people directly. He turned to face her. But I could take you to the nearest human outpost. From there, we might be able to get word to your people through proper channels. Kayla hesitated. Leave with this stranger to an outpost full of his kind, but what other choice did she have? How far is this human outpost, she asked. About a week's journey at my ship's top speed, Alan replied. It's a small mining and research station called Galileo. Not fancy, but they have proper communication, equipment, and occasionally get diplomatic visitors from other species. As Kayla considered the offer, the station lights flickered ominously. Your power core is degrading faster than you might realize, Alan observed. Those readouts suggest you have maybe a month before critical systems start failing permanently. Decision, time. Stay and face certain death when the station finally failed, or trust this unknown human and leave the only safe place she had known for the past 3 months. When could we leave? She asked. Alan smiled again, wider this time. As soon as you're ready to pack your things. Kayla stood in her quarters looking at the small collection of personal items spread on her bed. What should she take? What should she leave behind? After 3 months of thinking she would die on this station, the decision to leave with a strange alien seemed both terrifying and exhilarating. She carefully packed her research samples, personal data records, and a few small items that held meaning to her. Everything fit into one container. A life reduced to a single box. When she returned to the docking bay, Alan was checking the airlock connections between his ship and the station. All set? He asked, looking up from his work. Yes, Kayla replied, holding her container tightly. But I must ask, why are you helping me? Salvage pilots look for abandoned resources, correct? Finding me must be inconvenient for your mission. Alan's expression softened. Where I come from, we have an old rule about space travel. You, never ignore a distress signal. Space is too big, too dangerous to leave anyone stranded. He shrugged. Besides, I've been in tough spots myself. 6 years ago, my ship crashed on a mining moon. I was stuck there for almost 6 months before anyone found me. 6 months alone? Kayla couldn't imagine it. Not quite alone. The moon had an automated mining facility with a simple AI system. Not great conversation, but better than nothing. He gestured toward his ship. Want to come aboard and see your home for the next week? The inside of the Horizon Seeker was nothing like Vesperian vessels, where Vesperian ships were organized. With clean lines and empty spaces, Alan's ship was packed with equipment, spare parts, and personal items. Every surface seemed to serve multiple functions. Storage containers were built into walls, and what little free space existed was filled with notes, small trinkets, and tools hung from magnetic strips. It's a bit cramped, Alan said, noticing her looking around. But she's reliable. This ship has gotten me through some tough situations. You refer to your ship as she? Kayla asked, finding the concept strange. Old human tradition, Alan explained with a smile. Ships are always female. Don't ask me why. It's been that way for thousands of years. He showed her to a small room off the main corridor. This is usually my cargo processing area, but I've cleared it out to make you a space to sleep. Not fancy, but should be comfortable enough. Kayla looked at the makeshift quarters. Alan had installed a sleeping platform and cleared storage space for her belongings. He had even adjusted the room's temperature and humidity controls to match the settings from her quarters on the station. Thank you, she said, genuinely touched by his thoughtfulness. No problem. The bathroom is across the hall. Kitchen and main control room are up front. Oh, and one more thing. He reached into a container and pulled out a small device. This is a universal translator, better than the one built into my ship. It should help us communicate more clearly. After Kayla settled into her quarters, they worked together to disconnect from the station. As the Horizon Seeker pulled away, Kayla watched through a viewing port as Epsilon 9 grew smaller. Her home for the past 3 months, now just another abandoned outpost in the vastness of space. You okay? Alan asked, joining her at the viewport. Yes, just saying goodbye. Alan nodded. I understand. First day of a journey is always the hardest. Over the next few days, Kayla and Alan developed a routine. Mornings were spent checking ship systems and plotting their course. Afternoons were for personal time. Evenings were for shared meals and conversation. The food was a challenge at first. Alan's synthesizer could create only human-compatible nutrition. After several attempts that left Kayla feeling ill, Alan suggested a different approach. Let me see your station food packs, he said on their third day. Maybe I can program the synthesizer to create something similar. He scanned the chemical composition of Kayla's remaining food supplies and spent hours adjusting his ship's food synthesizer. That evening, he presented her with a bowl of something that looked nothing like Vesperian food, but smelled surprisingly familiar. Try it, he encouraged. I broke down the basic nutrients your food contains and reconfigured them into something my synthesizer can create. It won't taste the same, but it should give you what you need. Kayla took a cautious bite. The texture was strange, but the nutrients felt right to her system. This is acceptable, thank you, Alan grinned. High praise indeed. We'll keep working on it. Maybe by the end of the week we'll get it to somewhat enjoyable. As days passed, Kayla found herself fascinated by human adaptability. Alan's ship constantly had small issues, a stuck valve here, a glitching sensor there, but he always found creative solutions using whatever was available. Humans call it jury rigging, he explained when she asked about his repair techniques. Making things work with what you have, not what you wish you had. Vesperian engineers would never approve of such methods. They followed strict protocols and used only authorized replacement parts. Yet Alan's solutions, while unorthodox, were undeniably effective. My people would consider this approach chaotic, Kayla observed as she watched Alan fix a coolant leak using a material that wasn't designed for that purpose. Yet it works, Alan replied, testing the seal. That's the human way. We adapt. It's how we survived on Earth and how we manage in space now. We're not the strongest species, or the smartest, or the most technologically advanced. But we're stubborn and creative. One night, as they shared a meal in the small galley, Alan asked about her research. I study cellular adaptation to extreme environments, Kayla explained. My work focuses on how organic life responds to radiation and vacuum exposure. Sounds important, Alan said. It is. Many of my people believe we should expand further into space, establish more colonies. But we need to understand how different environments might affect us first. She hesitated, then added, the samples I saved, the ones I was collecting when my people evacuated, show fascinating mutations after exposure to the cosmic storm. This research could be valuable. So your work might help your people travel farther, maybe even to regions where they could meet humans someday? Kayla nodded. Perhaps, though I am uncertain how my people would react to humans. Vesperians are cautious with new species, and yet here you are, traveling with a complete stranger from an unknown species, Alan pointed out with a smile. I had little choice, Kayla reminded him. True, but you're handling it well. Many would be too frightened to function. On the 5th day of their journey, Alan received a transmission from Outpost Galileo. The message was in human language, so Kayla couldn't understand it, but Alan's expression grew serious as he listened. Is something wrong? She asked when the transmission ended. Maybe, Alan said, checking their navigation system. There's been increased activity near the outpost, some kind of dispute between two mining companies. Security has been increased, and they're questioning all incoming vessels more carefully. He looked at her with concern. Galileo has dealt with non-humans before, but they've never seen a Vesperian. I can't guarantee how they'll react to you. Will they turn me away? Kayla asked, feeling a fresh wave of anxiety. No, they'll let us talk. But they might restrict your movements or insist on quarantine procedures. He sighed. I'm sorry. I hoped this would be easier. You have already done more than I could have expected, Kayla assured him. Whatever happens at this outpost, I'm grateful for your help. Alan smiled, but his eyes remained worried. Let's prepare for arrival. I'll send them information about Vesperian biology to help smooth things along, and I'll make it clear that you're under my protection. Your protection? Kayla found this concept interesting. Is that a human custom? Sort of. Humans take responsibility for those they bring into new situations. His expression turned serious. I found you, Kayla. I brought you into human space. That means I'm responsible for your safety until you can return to your people or find your own way. The concept was foreign to Vesperian culture, where individuals were responsible only for their assigned duties. This personal commitment to another's welfare was something new. As they prepared for arrival at Outpost Galileo, Kayla realized how much had changed in just a few days. She had gone from accepting her death on an abandoned station to traveling toward an unknown future with a member of a species she hadn't known existed, and somehow, against all logic, she was beginning to trust him. The Horizon Seeker was 2 days away from Outpost Galileo when the alarm started blaring. Kayla was in her makeshift quarters studying human language patterns when the ship lurched violently to one side. She rushed to the control room where Alan was frantically working the navigation controls. What's happening? She asked, grabbing onto a support rail as the ship shuddered again. Cosmic storm, Alan replied, his eyes fixed on the scanner. Similar to the one that hit your station but moving faster. Our long-range sensors only just picked it up. The view screen showed a swirling mass of energy approaching from their port side. The radiation levels were already climbing as the storm's outer edges reached them. Can we outrun it? Kayla asked. Alan shook his head. Not at full strength, but maybe we can find shelter. His fingers flew over the navigation panel. There's an asteroid field about 4 hours from our position. If we can reach it, the larger rocks might provide enough shielding. He adjusted their course, pushing the engines to maximum. The ship groaned under the strain but picked up speed. I need your help, Alan said, pointing to the secondary control station. Monitor these sensor readings. If any of them go into the red zone, tell me immediately. Kayla took the seat and focused on the displays. She had learned enough about human ship systems over the past 5 days to understand the basics. For 3 tense hours, they raced ahead of the storm's leading edge. The Horizon Seeker's engines whined in protest as Alan pushed them beyond their recommended limits. There, he finally said, pointing to the view screen. The asteroid field. Ahead of them, hundreds of dark shapes tumbled slowly through space. Some were small, barely larger than the ship, while others were massive chunks of rock several kilometers across. "I'll find us a good spot," Alan said, reducing speed as they approached the field. "Something big enough to shield us, but not so crowded that we risk collisions." He navigated carefully between the asteroids, finally settling near a large one with a cratered surface. "This should work. I'll extend the landing struts and attach us to the surface. The rock should absorb most of the radiation." As Alan worked to secure the ship, Kayla continued monitoring the storm. "It's approaching quickly," she warned. "Radiation levels are rising." "Almost done," Alan said, finishing the docking procedure. "Now let's power down non-essential systems to reduce our energy signature. Storms like this are attracted to power sources. They shut down everything except life support, emergency lighting, and minimal sensors." The ship grew quiet and dark as they waited for the storm to pass. "How long will it last?" Kayla asked. "Hard to say. Could be hours. Could be days." Alan checked the remaining active sensors. "All we can do is wait it out." They sat together in the dim control room, watching the storm's energy patterns swirl around their hiding place. The asteroid provided good protection, but occasional energy discharges still struck the ship, causing the lights to flicker. "Your station was hit by something like this?" Alan asked. "Yes, but larger. I was fortunate that the station's shields held." Kayla looked at the energy readings. "These storms were rare in this sector until recently. My research team was studying why they've become more common. Did you find anything?" "Not conclusively, but we had theories about changes in the nebula's radiation patterns. A particularly strong energy surge hit the asteroid, and several ship systems went offline." Alan quickly moved to restore power to the life support. "That was close," he muttered. Then he frowned at a new alert on his console. "That's strange. The sensors are picking up an energy reading from the asteroid itself. The storm could be causing mineral deposits in the rock to react," Kayla suggested. "Maybe, but..." Alan was cut off as the ship suddenly shuddered. "Something's pulling on us." The energy reading from the asteroid was growing stronger, creating a visible glow that spread across the rocky surface. The ship's remaining power levels began to drop rapidly. "It's draining our energy," Alan exclaimed, trying to restart the engines. "We need to detach from the asteroid now." But the docking clamps wouldn't release. The unknown energy had created a magnetic connection that held them firmly in place. "What is that thing?" Alan asked, staring at the view screen as the glow intensified. Kayla studied the sensor readings. "It appears to be some kind of silicon-based entity. It must feed on energy sources." "Great, a space vampire," Alan muttered. "And we just offered ourselves as dinner." He grabbed an emergency kit from under his control panel. "I need to go outside and manually release the docking clamps. It's the only way." "Outside?" Kayla looked alarmed. "The storm is still active." "Well, we don't have a choice. If that thing drains all our power, we'll lose life support." He began putting on his spacesuit. "I need you to monitor my progress from here. If the energy creature moves toward me, warn me immediately." Kayla wanted to object, but she knew he was right. Without power, they would both die. "Be careful," she said. Alan gave her a quick smile. "Always am." Once his suit was sealed, he entered the airlock and cycled it open. Kayla watched on the external cameras as he carefully made his way across the ship's hull toward the docking clamps. The creature, a glowing, shifting mass that had emerged from inside the asteroid, seemed to notice the new energy source. Tendrils of light began moving toward Alan. "Alan, it's coming toward you," Kayla warned through the communication system. "I see it," he replied, his voice crackly through the radio. almost to the first clamp. He reached the docking mechanism and began working to manually override it. The glowing tendrils moved closer. Kayla watched helplessly from inside. Then she had an idea. "The creature is attracted to energy," she said. "Perhaps we can distract it." She quickly moved to the ship's system controls. If she could create an energy pulse from a different part of the ship, it might draw the creature away from Alan. Using what she had learned about human technology, she rerouted power to create a surge in the rear sensors. The burst of energy caught the creature's attention, and its glowing tendrils shifted direction, moving away from Alan. "It worked," she told him. "But I can only do this a few more times before we lose too much power." "Good thinking," Alan replied. "First clamp is free. Moving to the second one now." Kayla created another energy diversion when the creature started moving toward Alan again. This pattern continued as Alan freed each of the 4 docking clamps. Finally, he made it back to the airlock. "All clamps released. Get the engines ready for immediate launch once I'm back inside." As soon as the airlock cycled closed, Kayla activated the startup sequence Alan had shown her earlier. The engines hummed to life just as the creature sent a massive energy pulse toward the ship. "Hang on," Alan shouted, rushing into the control room still wearing his spacesuit. He took over the controls and pulled the ship away from the asteroid with a violent surge of acceleration. The creature extended glowing tendrils after them, but they were already moving beyond its reach. The Horizon Seeker shot through the asteroid field, weaving between the massive rocks as Alan piloted with incredible skill. "That was too close," he said when they were finally clear. "The storm has weakened while we were dealing with the creature," Kayla observed, checking the sensors. "We should be able to continue toward the outpost now." Alan nodded, but his expression was serious. "The ship took damage from both the storm and that energy vampire. We'll need to make repairs before we can reach Galileo safely." He set a course toward a small empty area of space just beyond the asteroid field. "We'll stop here and assess the damage." The next 12 hours were spent working side by side, repairing damaged systems and restoring power. Alan taught Kayla about human engineering techniques as they worked, and she found herself impressed once again by his adaptability. In a Vesperian ship, these systems would be considered beyond repair without a proper maintenance facility, she said as they finished bypassing a damaged power conduit. "Humans have always been good at making do," Alan replied with a tired smile. "Necessity is the mother of invention, as we say." When the repairs were complete, they resumed their journey toward Outpost Galileo. The ship moved more slowly now, its engines still recovering from the strain. "We'll get there," Alan assured her. "It might take an extra day, but we'll make it." That night, as Kayla rested in her quarters, she thought about how differently things might have gone without Alan's help, both in rescuing her from the station and in dealing with the energy creature. Her people valued order, protocol, and careful planning. But sometimes she was learning survival required something different: creativity, quick thinking, and the courage to take risks. Perhaps there was something her people could learn from humans after all. Outpost Galileo appeared on their view screen as a collection of interconnected modules attached to a small asteroid. Solar panels extended outward like metal wings, catching the light from the distant sun. Several small ships were docked at various points around the structure. "Not as pretty as a Vesperian station, I imagine," Alan said as he guided the Horizon Seeker toward the outpost. "But it's home to about 200 humans working in mining, research, and trade." Kayla watched the approaching station with mixed feelings. Part of her was relieved to reach civilization after their dangerous journey. Another part was anxious about how these humans would react to her. "Remember," Alan said, "let me do the talking at first. Some of these people have never seen non-human species before." The outpost's communication system crackled to life. "Salvage. Vessel Horizon Seeker, this is Outpost Galileo Control. We've been expecting you. Please proceed to Docking Bay 4. Alan raised an eyebrow in surprise. "They're being more welcoming than I expected." As they docked, Kayla could see people gathering in the arrival area beyond the airlock. She straightened her clothing and tried to look as non-threatening as possible. "Ready?" Alan asked. "As ready as I can be," she replied. The airlock door opened, and they stepped into Outpost Galileo. A small group of humans waited for them, led by a tall woman with short gray hair and a serious expression. "Alan Warren," the woman said, stepping forward. "You certainly know how to make an entrance. When we got your message about bringing a member of a previously unknown species, half the station didn't believe it." "Director Pierce?" Alan nodded in greeting. "Thank you for not shooting us on sight." "The day's still young," the woman replied with a slight smile. Then she turned to Kayla. "Welcome to Outpost Galileo. I'm Olivia Pierce, station director." Kayla gave the formal Vesperian greeting gesture. "Thank you for your welcome. I am junior researcher Kayla Venn of the Vesperian Science Academy." "Director." Pierce seemed pleased by the formal introduction. "We've prepared quarters for you both and would like to invite you to meet with our science team. They have many questions, as you might imagine." "Questions can wait," Alan said firmly. "Kayla needs rest and proper food, and we need to find a way to contact her people." "Of course," Director Pierce agreed. "We've assigned our communications specialist to help with that task. Please follow me." As they walked through the station corridors, Kayla noticed how different human architecture was from Vesperian design. Everything seemed built for function rather than harmony, with exposed pipes and conduits running along walls and ceilings. Yet there was a comfortable, lived-in quality to the space that Vesperian stations often lacked. The humans they passed stared openly at Kayla, some with curiosity, others with caution. A few small children pointed and whispered excitedly. "Don't mind them," Alan said quietly to Kayla. "Most people here have only seen other species in videos. Their quarters were simple but comfortable. The station's maintenance team had quickly modified a standard room to accommodate Vesperian biology, adjusting the lighting and temperature based on information Alan had sent ahead. "This is more than adequate," Kayla told Director Pierce. "Thank you for your consideration." In the days that followed, Kayla worked with the station's communications team to send messages toward Vesperian space. They boosted the signal as much as possible, hoping it would reach a Vesperian outpost or passing ship. Meanwhile, she shared information about her species and culture with the station's science team, who were fascinated by Vesperian biology and technology. In return, they taught her about human history and their rapid expansion into space. "Humans achieved spaceflight so recently," Kayla remarked to Alan one evening as they shared a meal in the station's common area. "Yet you've spread so far in such a short time." "We're explorers by nature," Alan replied, "always wondering what's over the next hill, or in this case, around the next star. My people explore too, but more cautiously. We study and plan for decades before establishing outposts." Alan smiled. "Different approaches, both with their advantages. Your way is safer. Our way sometimes leads to amazing discoveries, and sometimes to disasters." 6 weeks after their arrival at Galileo, the station's long-range sensors detected a ship approaching from Vesperian space. Kayla's heart raced when she heard the news. "It worked," she said to Alan. "They received our message." The Vesperian vessel that arrived was a sleek diplomatic ship, smaller than a science vessel but larger than a standard transport. 3 high-ranking officials came aboard Outpost Galileo: a science director, a diplomatic coordinator, and a security commander. Their greeting to Kayla was formal and cold. "Junior researcher Venn," the science director said, "your survival is unexpected but welcomed. We are prepared to return you to Vesperian space immediately." To the humans, they were polite but distant. "We appreciate your assistance in this matter," the diplomatic coordinator told Director Pierce. "However, formal relations between our species would be premature at this time." In a private meeting with Kayla, the Vesperian officials explained what had happened after the evacuation. "We returned to Epsilon 9 3 weeks after the storm," the science director said. "We found evidence you had survived initially, but assumed you had taken an emergency vessel and been lost in space. The station's logs showed all escape pods had been launched. The escape pods were launched automatically during the evacuation," Kayla explained. "I was still in the deep labs when everyone left. A regrettable oversight, the diplomatic coordinator said without emotion. But now we can return you to your proper place. We depart in 2 hours. Gather your belongings. 2 hours? Kayla was surprised by the rush. I haven't had time to properly thank the humans for their help, or to complete the cultural exchange we began. That will not be necessary, the security commander stated. Your extended contact with humans is concerning. You will need to undergo reintegration and evaluation upon return. Kayla understood what this meant. She would be isolated, her research confiscated, and her future career carefully controlled. The Vesperian authorities saw her time with humans as contamination rather than opportunity. As the officials left to prepare for departure, Alan found Kayla in her quarters, slowly packing her things. You don't seem happy about going home, he observed. I am uncertain, she admitted. My people see your kind as primitive and potentially dangerous. They will not value what I have learned here. Alan leaned against the doorway. You know, you don't have to go with them. Director Pierce mentioned that you could request asylum here if you wanted. Asylum? The concept was new to Kayla. It means you could stay here with us. Continue your research, maybe even serve as a bridge between our species someday when your people are ready for more contact. Kayla had never considered such a possibility. Vesperians didn't leave their assigned paths. It simply wasn't done. But she wasn't. The same person who had been accidentally left behind on Epsilon 9. Her experiences had changed her. Working with Alan, seeing how humans solved problems, built communities, and valued individual choices, it had opened her eyes to new possibilities. When the Vesperian officials returned to escort her to their ship, Kayla stood tall and spoke clearly. I am grateful for your effort to retrieve me, she said formally, but I will not be returning with you. The officials were shocked. This is not a request, junior researcher, the science director said sternly. It is a directive. I respectfully decline. I am requesting asylum on this human station to continue my research independently. This is unprecedented, the security commander exclaimed. You cannot simply choose to stay among aliens. Director Pierce stepped forward. Actually, she can. And Outpost Galileo grants her request for asylum. The diplomatic incident that followed was tense but brief. The Vesperian officials made threats and demands, but ultimately had no authority to remove Kayla by force from a human station. When they finally departed, promising serious diplomatic consequences, Kayla felt both terrified and exhilarated by her choice. Are you sure about this? Alan asked as they watched the Vesperian ship disappear into the distance. No, Kayla admitted, but I am sure that going back would mean losing everything I've learned. My people value order above all else. They would never listen to new ideas from someone who broke protocol. She turned to him. Here, I can continue my research without restrictions. Perhaps someday when I have results that even my people cannot ignore, they will be ready to listen. And perhaps by then, our species can learn from each other. Alan smiled. I think you might be the bravest Vesperian I know. You are the only Vesperian you know, Kayla pointed out. True, but something tells me you'd be special anywhere. He gestured toward the station. So, ready to start your new life? Kayla looked out at the stars, thinking about the strange path that had brought her here. Left behind by her own people, rescued by a human who valued her life simply because it was life. Yes, she said. I am ready.